Today we're talking about hooks. If you want your content to perform better, you need irresistible hooks. But I'm not just going to give you a list of proven hooks or tell you to copy whatever's going viral, because you've probably already tried that and it didn't work. What you do need to understand is the psychological principles behind the hooks and why they worked, so that when you do your research and study viral videos, you can take that knowledge and apply it to your own content. And I know this works because I've literally done it over 1,000 times, as I have scripted content for one of the leading personal brand agencies in the world and gotten results like all of this, 12 million, 3 million, 1.3 million, etc., etc. Okay, first I'll explain how hooks work and the psychology behind them, and then I'll show you how I use them and how you can use them too to create your own great hooks. But before we do that, you need to understand that there are 3 different types of hooks. The verbal hook is what you say within the first 3 seconds. The written hook is what you write in the first 3 seconds. And the visual hook is what the viewer sees in the first 3 seconds. The verbal hook is often what people think of intuitively when people talk about hooks. And I honestly think that a lot of people misunderstand the concept of what a hook should do. They would say that the goal of your hook is to get as many people as possible to watch your content. But I don't think that's true. I think a good hook makes the right people watch your content and the wrong people scroll away. Your verbal hook should do 3 things. It should give the minimal viable context to understand the topic of the video. It should bring clarity for who that video is for, and then it should create enough curiosity for that viewer so they want to hear what's next. And this is why I see hooks as a filtering mechanism instead of an attention grabber, because you want to attract people who resonate with the topic, the problem, and your expertise. So to make the right person stay, you want to use curiosity loops. An open loop, or also a curiosity loop, is an unanswered question or an unfinished idea that creates mental tension. In psychology, they call it the Zeigarnik effect. You intentionally create a question in the mind of the viewer and also intentionally delay delivering the solution to that problem. And this is one of the strongest ways to create curiosity. When using curiosity loops, you need to be thinking of a couple of things. If you open a loop and you close it immediately after the hook, people will have no reason to stay to watch your entire video. And so you want to delay actually delivering that piece of value to the end of the video. You can strengthen an open loop with a contrast, a surprising perspective, or a unique mechanism. Take a look at how I opened this video. Today we're talking about hooks. If you want your content to perform better, you need irresistible hooks. But I'm not just going to give you a list of proven hooks or tell you to copy whatever's going viral, because you've probably already tried that and it didn't work. What you do need to understand is the psychological principles behind the hooks and why they worked, so that when you do your research and study viral videos, you can take that knowledge and apply it to your own content. I told you that better hooks will help your content perform, and then I told you what I wouldn't do, which is what most people are doing in the industry. I'm creating an open loop and I'm setting up a contrast to make my open loop even stronger so that you're genuinely curious on what I do differently than everybody else. All right, so one of the biggest mistakes I see that people do is that they try to be clever, but instead you should be incredibly simple in your language. So I want you to use language that is short and simple, language that is familiar to the viewer, and the last one, which is incredibly crucial, only communicate one idea in your hook. Don't try to introduce all sorts of angles. So even though your expertise carries all of these different variables, you need to focus on only one per hook, or else you're just going to confuse your viewer. Remember that you are not communicating to the level of yourself. You are an expert, most likely. And so your audience will not be an expert. And so you need to communicate to the level of your audience and not to the level of other experts. So if you're attracting people who are looking for an expert in your field, then you want to attract that person and communicate to their level instead. Let me show you a real verbal hook example from my client, Brian. So just for context, Brian is a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner. He uses TCM, traditional Chinese medicine concepts, to treat his patients who have chronic illnesses. And most of these patients have gone through the entire Western medical system and they haven't seen results. They have been neglected and they have been slapped on with a diagnosis and they can't get any more help. So let's just listen to this hook and let's focus on what he says.
Here's why you constantly have throat mucus and why your doctor can't figure it out, because the phlegm that they see is the symptom, not the cause.
All right, let's take a look at it. Here's why you constantly have throat mucus and why your doctor can't figure it out, because the phlegm that they see is the symptom, not the cause. This is one hook, and I am kind of going against my own saying here with having very simple language and very simple sentences. This is one a bit longer sentence, but let's see what we're doing here. We're kind of using 3 sentences, but kind of pushing it into one. So we're saying, here's why you constantly have throat mucus. This does 2 things. It says who the hook is for and what the video is about. Then we say, and why your doctor can't figure it out. Okay, so now we are implying that this is also for people who have tried to fix it. They went to the doctor, but the doctor couldn't figure it out. Now we're starting to do something powerful, which is called setting up a common enemy. This uses a psychological principle that we call in-group and out-group psychology. Humans love to be part of a group. And so when they can separate themselves to make their group stronger and then push out everyone else, they feel a sense of purpose and mission. This is what we're doing here. We're starting to build it up. Everyone who has been neglected by the Western medication system are now feeling like, yeah, I'm against this and I'm for whatever Brian is saying here. And then we go on to say the next sentence in the hook, which is because the phlegm that they see is the symptom, not the cause. And now we're not only rallying people together by kind of pointing the finger at them, we are also pointing the finger at the flaw that they're doing, which is in Western medicine, they're very focused on the, at least from this perspective, by the way, I'm not taking a position here. They're very focused on the specific symptom. And in Chinese medicine, they're focused on solving the root imbalance. And so this is where this hook becomes so strong. It calls out the viewer. It tells them what this video is about, a problem that is painful for them. It tells them that this is not the bullshit that you've already been through, because we are not like those idiots, essentially. And then it goes into the video like that. And if you have throat phlegm, if you have throat mucus, you are watching this hook. Like, there is no chance. Okay, so the next time you are creating a hook, I want you to ask yourself these questions. Is the topic clear? Does the right person resonate? Does the right person know that this is for them? Is the language simple? Is there a reason to keep watching? Is there a problem in the hook that you're solving? And are you creating an open loop, a contrast, or a unique perspective? In Brian's example, the unique perspective is solving the cause and not the symptom. Okay, cool. That was it in terms of verbal hooks. Now let's go into the written hooks. So a written hook, just to restate, is what is written on screen in the first 3 seconds. This is where my statement that a hook is a filtering mechanism also becomes very important. The thing with written hooks is that people process a small bite of text way faster than a person speaks it and then they hear it and process it, right? So the first thing you process subconsciously, immediately, when you're scrolling in your feed is the written hook. And so this is what you want a written hook to do. You want it to give context, give that minimal viable amount of context. Here's why you have throat mucus. And then you want it to spark curiosity so that people get an inherent desire to want to hear what's next, essentially. It's the same thing, but with the written hook, you want to be way, way simpler than you're doing in the verbal hook. So you want to be short, clear, and you want to be specific. And specific is the keyword here because it is so important for your written hook. And I'll show you an example of this afterwards where specificity made the entire difference of the video's performance. Simple language, and in my opinion, 5 to 7 words is the sweet spot. Sometimes I go overboard. It depends on my market research and the outlier research that I've done. Listen, the thing is, I see a lot of people when they're creating written hook is that they take their verbal hook, here's why you have throat mucus, and they just plaster that on the screen like a copy paste of the verbal hook. And I genuinely think that that's not a good idea. You are kind of wasting potential, I call it real estate, of your video. You only have so many things you can do to make people want to watch your video. And if you're just doing the exactly same thing as your verbal hook, you're kind of missing out on the potential. So let's look at the example again with Brian, and you can see how I have done it to solve this issue in this video. So let's look at the written hook here. Instead of saying, here's why you have throat mucus and your doctor, etc., I am saying, do you have constant throat mucus? in your throat. So you need to think, okay, how does this apply to the viewer when they're scrolling in the video? They're subconsciously getting this question in their mind. Do you have constant throat mucus in your throat? Yes or no? No? Scroll. Yes? Yeah, I do. And then as that has been processed, he's already inside of the hook. He's already saying, here's why. You can just see.
Here's why you constantly have throat mucus and why you're
right? You're already getting into the video here. So they get the question in their mind and they're getting an explanation directly. And then what you'll see on news sites, which is a great way to get inspo for hooks, by the way, is that they will have the headline, the hook, and then they'll have a sub-headline to give additional context. And so here I introduced the unique mechanism, which is just your unique way of solving things. In general, when people say unique mechanisms, they mean like unique mechanism to you as a person. With Brihan, we're using it in context of his practicing discipline because it's such a small niche thing. So we're using it in this context as a unique mechanism. TCM means traditional Chinese medicine. A lot of people right now on Instagram know what it is because it's a trendy phenomenon. And so this gives enough context for people to understand, okay, this is something different. And I also just wrote down here for clarity, but we already went through it. Okay, so back to how to write it, where I mentioned specificity. Let's look at an example of one of my videos that my wife created. So if you didn't know, I helped my wife go from 0 to 100K followers in the last 4 months. And a lot of what we did was split testing different written hooks. So one video was a hairstyle for when you want your hair down, but out of your face. The other was the hairstyle, the only difference in the entire video. This video got 30,000 views. Oh, that's pretty good. This video got 5 million views. So in this example, specificity made like a 5 million view difference for the performance of the video. And this is why like being intentional and thinking about how can I make my hook more specific is so important. So here is the checklist for your written hooks. Can it be understood instantly? Is it easy to understand? Is it specific, like I just showed you? Does every single word matter? Can you remove a word and it still makes sense? Then remove the word. And does it complement the verbal hook, not just copy it? That sounds so AI. Okay, cool. Visual hooks. In my opinion, visual hooks are so overrated. You'll see a lot of gurus and content people saying like, oh, you need to like do like visual hooks and like all of this. I just like to ask myself this question. Will me shaking my ass on Instagram attract the people who are going to buy my service? And for me, I have a content agency, so no, I am not an OF creator, so no. Visual hooks should support the understanding of the video, so it should only make the video easier to understand. So if you're doing gimmicky stuff like this, it's not making you understand the video better. And then what I think visual hooks are super powerful for is supporting the branding of the creator. Okay, so let's go into this. If you are a fitness creator, you can use the visuals of the video, what is being shown in the video, to support your brand. You can record it in the gym, you can wear gym clothes, you can be ripped, and people will start slowly over like hundreds and hundreds of pieces of content to associate your name with being the fitness guy. That's what you want. If you're a relationship coach, you can record your videos at home in your couch with a candlelight and make it like cozy and trustworthy. And you're creating an emotion with the visuals of your video instead of doing those gimmicky things. Supporting the understanding of the video is, I kind of break down the visual hook into two different aspects. So the visual, which is what is shown in the raw footage, what you're recording, and the editing. So let me show you what I mean. So I just described the visual, but let me show you an example so that you can see the visual aspect in work. So this is Lucy. She is another client of mine. She's a finance coach she was an immigrant and she turned herself into a millionaire in her 30s by working hard and like investing and doing all the money things. Her unique perspective is that building wealth isn't just the math, the tactics, the technical stuff. It is working on your mindset and your money story, which is the specific way that she does it. This is a video we did and it got like 3.4 million views and got a lot of qualified followers. But let's look at the visual here. So this is the rating format that you've probably seen on Instagram, where someone is asking them questions and they give an answer. We are rating books here, books that made her a millionaire, and she's rating them from 1 to 10. This visual here shows 1 to 10, And we took this from a viral thumbnail concept that you've probably seen on YouTube. So this was going viral on YouTube where you have these colored numbers. We used that for a format that was working well on Instagram. And we're using this to make the video easier to understand. Instead of just saying like the words, we have editing to support the visuals. We show the book, The Rich Dad Poor Dad book. Let me just show you here. Does it load?
Rich Dad, Poor Dad. 6 out of 10. Great.
Right? We're putting the books onto this rating so that we're visually showing how that you're rating it, and they can visually compare throughout the video. That is how you use visual hooks in the editing to make the video easier to understand. So here is the checklist that you can ask yourself when you are creating your next visual hook. Does it improve the understanding of the video and it's not like a gimmicky thing? Does it support the brand? Does it build the brand? And does it attract the correct audience? Now, how do we actually use all of this that we've talked about, all of these concepts, to create our own great hooks? We can take the example from the finance niche. So what I want you to do is that I want you to take your expertise and I want you to split it into keywords. Okay, as many as possible, as many good ones as possible, to be honest. And this is going to be a lot of work, by the way, but if you want to have your own intuition for hooks and you want to have your understanding of your market, then this is worth doing. Okay, so for Lucy, she's a finance coach. So we're breaking it down to personal finance, investing, saving, budgeting, money mindset, and manifestation. These last two are to cover her other side of her offer so that we also attract people who are interested in those things. We are going to do outlier research using this. So for each keyword, you want to go onto Instagram, search that keyword in the search function, and make a list of 5 relevant creators per keyword. I think a relevant creator is a creator who's not at the top, not at the bottom, but they've been posting consistently and they're getting like banger videos. They're growing and they're posting consistently. They will often be in the range of like 10,000 followers to upwards of 500,000. That's where you get like the juicy ideas. Then for each of these, so 5 per keyword, I want you to figure out, okay, what is their average view count? So let's say that on average, their videos get 10,000 views. Then you want to find videos that are 4 times 10,000, so 40,000 views. If there's a 40,000 view video on an account that usually gets 10, you know that there's something there that is worth studying. What I do is that I have created a research document where I know this is a bit hard to see, but here you can see the link to the video. There's a written hook, verbal hook, visual hook, format, a topic. And then what I recommend you to do is to also make a note. And then just to verbalize this for yourself. Why do I think this video went viral? As you do this over and over again with these. So what I want you to do here is to take your 5 creators per keyword, which will give you a range of what, 20, 30 creators. And then for all of their outliers, you will analyze the 3 hooks, why you think it went viral based on the principles that we've talked about. And as if you've done this, you will have created a database, a lot of data around content that is going viral in your niche. You will understand why. And so when you're creating your next hook, you go into this database, you take a verbal hook from here, a written hook from here, and a visual hook from here. You mix them together, and based on the principles that we've talked about, you make sure they fit you and your brand, and that is your hook. You have created a hook that is very, very likely to succeed, and you understand why. You haven't just ripped it off. You have alchemized it based on the viral elements of the market. And doing this over and over again and practicing this and building your own intuition of what is a good hook and what is performing in my market is what will make you start seeing results with your content. So just to give you something last to go off with, this is the final checklist. So before you create your video, answer all of these questions. We already went through them. The verbal hook, the written hook, and the visual hook, and you will have created a video that goes viral.
Oh, and by the way, if you want me to personally send you 7 hooks every single week where I break down why they worked and how you can use it in your own content, then go to the link in the description and sign up to my newsletter where I do that every single week.